Before we get started in Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakya Mani Buddha. Namo Shakya Mani Buddha. Namo Shakya Mani Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, Venerable Sangha. We're continuing with the Dhammapada. Today we'll be covering verse 68 of chapter 5. Last week, or the prior, we did verse 67. So verses 67 and 68 are kind of twin verses. They're contrasting verses. So in verse 67, it went over the negative aspects of doing misdeeds. And so today's verse 68 will be going over the positive or the wholesome aspects of doing good deeds. So as usual, I'll read the verse, give the story behind the verse that was given, and provide my commentary. So I've written the verses on the board. It's not in your books, so don't want to waste your time. But I'll read both verses 67 and 68. And that goes, "That deed is not well done when after having done it, one regrets, and when weeping with fearful face, one reaps the fruit thereof. That deed is well done when after having done it, one regrets not, and when with joy and pleasure, one reaps the fruit thereof." So you'll see that in both verses, it's pretty much the same. The only difference is the word "not" and the words weeping and joy. So the story behind this verse is back in the Buddhist time, there was a florist or gardener of King Bimbasara in Rajagriha. And every morning he would cut flowers and go to the king and offer those flowers to the king every morning. And one day when Sumana, that's the gardener, when Sumana was on the way to, or not on the way, but I guess he was still in the garden, but he saw the Buddha going into town to give alms around, right? And I suppose that this is the very first time that he ever saw the Buddha. And so when he saw the Buddha, he saw kind of his aura, his enlightened aura. He just kind of really had a strong sense of pleasure, right? Piti, right? Meditative pleasure, kind of the pleasure that arises in the body without any cause, right? This is the type of true pleasure we get within meditations. When you have deep meditation, we develop one of the jhana factors called piti, right? And this is a joy, a bodily sensation that arises without any external factors, without any cause, right? It's not because you ate a good slice of cake or had something delicious to eat, right? There's no cause for this joy, it just arises. And so when Sumana saw the Buddha, he immediately had the thought that he wanted to make an offering to him, right? Because in Buddha's time, and even in today's time, right, when one sees or visits monasteries or sees monks or nuns, a traditional action is to provide an offering of some sort out of humility and gratitude. And so Sumana at the time he had his bouquet of flowers, right, that he was about to offer the king. And so to him, he kind of had this thought that, well, I don't have anything with me right now to offer the Buddha, but I have these flowers I was about to offer the king, so I'll do that. The very next thought that arose was a thought of fear, right? It's like, well, I give the king these flowers every morning, and then this morning I'm not going to. Like, he was fearful that the king was going to punish him for not providing his morning flower bouquet. But Sumana also had the thought that the best that the king could provide to him, right, by him giving these flowers, by giving him these offerings every morning, the best the king can provide is physical riches, right? He paid Sumana 8, I forget what it's the Pali word for it, but 8 pieces of gold, essentially. And so when he had the thought that the king can only provide him physical riches, but the Buddha can provide so much more than that, right? Because physical riches can only benefit you in this one lifetime. But the Buddha Dharma that the Buddha can provide to him can give him riches for all future lifetimes. And so he kind of disregarded the potential punishment that he would get from the king and went ahead and provided the Buddha the offering of flowers. And the Buddha accepted these offerings of flowers. And then when Sumana went home, he told the story, or told his wife what had happened, and his wife got really enraged. She was not as open-minded, maybe. She was as thrilled that her husband gave their daily work, I guess, right? Because he had no money, right? He got no money out of these flowers. So she was like, "Yo, you lost my money," basically. So she was so upset that she had essentially said she had left him. She had taken the kids and separated from the husband. And she even went to the degree to when she went to the king and had an audience with the king and explained to the king that my husband gave your daily flowers to the Buddha, had nothing to do with it. So whatever punishment you're about to give to him, just know that me and the kids are separated from him. We're no longer attached to that family. We're leaving, right? So she wanted nothing to do with it. King Bimbasara, however, was a Sotapadhana. He was a stream enter. He had attained the first level of enlightenment. And so he had no preference for these flowers, right? He was just flowers. He had no care that Sumana gave the flowers to the Buddha. In fact, he was actually thrilled that Sumana gave such an offering to the Buddha, knowing or thinking that there was a potential for punishment, right? So the king, instead of the king being a Sotapadhana, he knew that the wife wasn't really good for him anyway, right? Clearly, she had no concern for creating good deeds. So he kind of played along and said, "Oh, heck no, right? How dare your husband do this? Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to take care of his punishment." So and let her know that she had nothing to do with it, so she can move on. So she moved on. The king then took his retinue and went to the Buddha and met with the Buddha and just did his daily things, right? And the Buddha had asked Ananda to go fetch Sumana and bring him to the monastery, to Jetavana monastery. And so when Sumana got there, the Buddha asked him, what were you thinking when you gave me those offerings of flowers? And Sumana told him that, when I saw the Tathagata, the Buddha, had such a feeling of piti, right, of great joy, that I knew that the king, if I provided these flowers to the king, that I would only get physical riches, right? I would only get money that would only last me this one lifetime, if even. But if I were to provide an offering to an enlightened being, to a holy Buddha, then I know that the merit or the payment I would get from that would last me many lifetimes. And so at that point, that's when the Buddha gave sorry, that's incorrect. Once he had explained that, then they all went in their merry way. But later on, there was a few monks that were sitting in the same day, sitting in the meditation hall or the Dharma hall, talking about that situation. The Buddha had passed by and kind of heard these monks talking about it and stepped in and asked, monks, what are you talking about? And the monks told them that they were talking about Sumana and his deed of providing offerings, knowing there was a potentiality that he would get punished for doing such a thing. And that's when the Buddha had given them this verse. And the Buddha had let them know that because of that offering that Sumana had, then in a future lifetime, Sumana would become a Prateka Buddha named Sumana. Prateka Buddha is sometimes called like a solitary Buddha or a personal Buddha. No, not personal Buddha. I forget what some translations are called, but solitary Buddha is the most common translation. So that's the story, short and sweet. My commentary should hopefully also be short and sweet, because it's just the opposite of last week or the week prior's talk about, instead of doing bad deeds and the recognition of doing bad deeds and knowing that a deed is negative, unwholesome. And then we have remorse, we have some regret. That's if you have any remorse or any regret when doing a deed, right? And if you know that it's a negative, unwholesome, or bad deed, then you're going to naturally feel a sense of remorse or regret or discomfort. But if one were to do a good deed, a wholesome deed, then the result from that is joy, it's happiness, right? There's no sense of regret. There's no sense of remorse for doing such a deed. So that's essentially the kind of moral of these stories, is knowing that when we do a good deed or a bad deed, that we know that what we're doing is a good deed or a bad deed. We know that if we're thinking unwholesome thoughts, that we know we're thinking unwholesome thoughts. When we're speaking unwholesome speech, we know that we're speaking unwholesome speech. When we do unwholesome actions, we know we're doing unwholesome actions. Likewise, when we do wholesome or positive actions, thoughts, and speech, is to know that when we're doing it, when we're thinking it, saying it, or doing, that we know what we're thinking, saying, and doing, right? As I mentioned last, I think I did, I don't know. I say I think I did because I always say this, but as I mentioned before, since everything starts at the thought level, right, as a thought, regardless of how long or short that thought is, because if you think about it, right, just like me speaking right now, there's thinking in the head happening before the speech is coming out. Even though it seems instantaneously, right, the mind is a supercomputer at this point. It's already thinking. The point is everything starting at a thought level, right? Every unwholesome, wholesome, or neutral thought starts in the mind. And so that's our first level of guardianship, right? We can guard the mind by observing the mind. And so when you're in a situation or whatever, and something happens or something arises or something, whatever the situation may be, a thought occurs, right? Thinking is happening. There's perceptions being developed based on what the senses are triggering, right? Whether it's smell, taste, touch, or whatever. But it's at that moment of thought that we have the ability to become super aware of that thought. What is that thought doing? What is that thought thinking, right? Is it negative? Is it positive? Is it beneficial? Is it unbeneficial? Is it helpful? Is it harmful, right? And so knowing that a thought is helpful or harmful is what will trigger, or not trigger, but is what will result in creating either wholesome or unwholesome karma, essentially, right? The moral of the story of both these verses is karma. That's the bottom line, is whatever we think, say, and do has impact to your karma. But it's not just what we think, say, and do that has the impact. It's the power behind that. It's the intention behind that. Because you can do something that is externally good, but the intention is unwholesome. Or the intention is wholesome, but you're doing a negative action, right? And so we can gauge the karmic situation based on the thought process you're having, based on the intention behind what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're doing. One of the famous story, a Buddhist story, is in a past life, in one of the Buddha's past lives, when he was a bodhisattva. He was on a ship full of some hundreds of people, right? But as a bodhisattva, he had the capacity to kind of sense people's intentions or thoughts or actions, right? And he had sensed that there was one person on the boat that was planning to kill everyone and steal all their riches, basically, right? And so the Buddha, or the bodhisattva at the time, knowing this, he thought to himself, well, should I not do anything so I don't create any karma and just let it be? Or do I intervene and take care of this one person in order to save hundreds of others, right? I think there was even a psychological thought experiment. I forgot what it's called. The one with the train track. But anyway, it's the same thing, right? Do nothing and have everyone killed, or kill one and save everyone else, right? And so even though killing is literally the worst thing you can do in life, right? It's the very first precept in Buddhism for both lay people and monastics, right? It's the gravest sin that one can do, is to take life. So the bodhisattva, knowing knowing that even killing is the worst thing and will send him straight to hell, but his intention behind that was to save 500 people, right? So I'm going to sacrifice one life in order to save 500, and I will accept the karmic retribution of that. So it's stated in Buddhist cosmology that if one were to kill, you immediately go to hell, right? And so the bodhisattva at the time killed, went to hell, and hell beings were like, yeah, what are you doing here? And he was just there for like a minute, and he left, right? Because his good karma greatly outweighed his negative karma anyway. But that's kind of the point behind this, right? Is even with good intentions, we still do negative actions or speech, or vice versa. With bad intention, we think we're doing something good. One example that we can probably all relate to is when we volunteer, right? The act of volunteerism is generally a positive impact, right? There's wholesomeness to it. But we also have to recognize, what is the intention behind that volunteerism? Are you doing it to make yourself feel good? Are you doing it because everyone else is doing it, right? Are you doing it because people at work are doing it, right? Sometimes I know, at least in corporate situations, where usually the whole group goes and volunteers for some action. And so what is the reason behind that volunteering that you're doing? Is it for yourself? Is it for others? Is it actually helpful, harmful, right? Because unfortunately, from my own experience and seeing people volunteer a lot, is they're not really doing it for the cause. They're doing it to take selfies and post on social media, say, look at me, I'm volunteering. I'm a good human being. No, you're not. I mean, you are, could be, right? But the action of showing what you're doing defeats the whole purpose, right? And so in whatever situation that we're in, right, to be mindful, or to be mindful and to be aware of what is happening in the mind is extremely important, because everything stems or starts from the mind. And so whatever we say, whatever we do, whatever situation you're in, whatever you're trying to accomplish or take care of, or whatever it may be, right? The action or the practice of questioning becomes very important, because this is how we become enlightened. This is how we get rid of our suffering. This is how we get rid of our defilements, is to question where these defilements even come from in the first place. Right? This is why we become liberated. What does liberation even mean? Literally, it means to see the light. Right? And so, in order to see the light, we have to get out of the darkness. But we're stuck in darkness all the time. Yeah, you come to temple, you're sitting in meditation, you do some chanting, you do some practice, and you do some reading at home, and you're in the light. But the moment you walk out and you go back to your normal life and you just continue normally, you're right back in the dark room. All you're doing is switching on the light on-off at your own convenience. But that convenience isn't going to get you that liberation. If you're going to choose, oh, I'm just going to come to temple on Sundays, I'm only going to practice on this day, I'm only going to meditate for this much time or days, you're choosing to simmer in suffering. You're making that choice. We often think, oh, I don't have a choice of my suffering. I'm suffering because I have a bad job, I have a bad situation, I'm in a bad relationship, I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have that. And you think that this is suffering. You think that this is inescapable. These are just minor inconveniences, for being quite honest, right? Yes, money helps in the world. Yes, having transportation helps. Yes, having the resources to do certain things is helpful and makes things easier, but it's not all that necessary for the most part. But if you're going to continue using what is causing you to suffer as an excuse, then the excuses will just continue on. Because what are you doing about it? If you can sit there and say, I suffer, because every single one of you, including me, is suffering. Right? There's no denying that, yes? Now the question comes, now the question you need to ask yourself is, well, what am I doing about it? What are you doing about it? Actual question. Nothing? Wow, okay. So what are you doing here? Why are you here? To figure out the source of that suffering. And how are you doing that?
Contemplating where it comes from.
Okay. And?
Seeing how, I guess, what are the causes of those? Or I guess, what are the effects of the causes that happen to me? How am I being affected by it?
Okay, and?
And I can figure out if they're wholesome or they're unwholesome. If they're unwholesome, I figure out, well, why do I make it unwholesome?
And then?
I just keep going from there, keep digging out weeds until, I don't know, it's a continuous process.
Thank you, that was literally what I was about to say. To work through that figuring out process, right, is to follow morality, wisdom, and concentration, right? Sila, prajna, and samadhi. And it's by those ethics, morality, and morality, wisdom, and concentration that we're able to escape those causes of suffering. Because we all suffer, yes? We can acknowledge that. Some of us may be able to say, I know why I'm suffering on a very superficial level. I don't have money, I don't have a good job, bad relationship, etc., etc. That's not real suffering. Or at least that's not the true source of the suffering, right? Those are just circumstances of bad situations or worse circumstances. But we know, we have an understanding of suffering, yes, right? That's one thing. That's already in and of itself an accomplishment, to at least understand at an intellectual level that we suffer. But that intellectual knowing isn't enough to escape suffering, right? To know that you suffer, that's great. You're unique, that's why you're here, because you know you suffer. At least I hope that's why you're here, right? You know you suffer. All right, that's step one. Step two is to then question, what is that suffering? Where does that suffering come from? Why does that even cause me to suffer? That's the samadhi part of the Eightfold Path, right? The concentration. And then once you start to develop that awareness of the causes of suffering, then you start to develop prajna, wisdom. Because wisdom is something that is attained. It's not the same as knowledge, right? Knowledge is something that's learned. You can read a book, you can read the sutra, you can read the teachings, that's knowledge. But to penetrate those teachings, to truly realize their truth, that's wisdom. That's a little bit more difficult to attain, right? Because it's something that needs to be penetrated, something that needs to be experienced. And you'll know when it happens. I've said it before. When you have true wisdom, when you truly have realized something, it'll fundamentally change you, right? There is a fundamental, obvious change in the mind when a true realization has occurred, right? It's not one of those, oh, that totally makes sense. No. It's not a realization. That's an acknowledgement of truth. It's not a realization. A realization takes time. As Quang mentioned, right? You have a situation, you question it. Where does it come from? Why? get an answer, you question again, why? You get another answer, you question again, why? And you continue going down the road, why? And this process may take some time, right? It may take a day, it may take a month, it may take a year, it may take until your deathbed. Doesn't matter how long it takes. But you question, you get to the source of that suffering. Once you get that source of the suffering, the root cause of what is causing you suffering, then you can finally say, this is it. And you can pluck that out. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a thing, sometimes it's just a wrong perception, a wrong view. But you'll know what needs to be done. And once it's plucked, once that root is rooted out, then that realization is that's the word I'm looking for. Attained. It's so off topic. I went from karma to attainments. But it still kind of goes hand in hand, because there's never, you can never not do good deeds, right? There's never an occasion where doing a good deed is the wrong thing to do. And doing more good deeds obviously helps us do less bad deeds, right? If you do more good in the world, then you have less opportunity to do bad things. And we all do bad things. Consciously or unconsciously, we all do bad things. But if you do more good, then you have less time to do bad, technically, right? I'm not saying to crunch your entire schedule into doing good deeds every time or all the time, but to at least do something good and beneficial and helpful, right, can never be a wrong thing. You are never wasting your time when you're doing good deeds. It can be small things, right? This doesn't have to be going out and building a house for somebody. It doesn't mean having to go out and volunteer for 6 hours a day or 10 times a week, right? That's not what good deeds is doing. Again, good deeds is anywhere from any thought, speech, and action could become a good deed. Just thinking good things is helpful to you. Saying good things, kind things, compassionate things, generous things is good for you. If you can do even more and physically do something good, then even better. The very first paramita of the 6 perfections is generosity, dana, right? And the Buddha described dana as anything that is helpful to yourself and to others. Just opening a door for someone is great merit to you. Smiling to someone is great merit for you. So don't think big, right? If you were to keep the tap of the water tap of the sink running for a week, right? Even little droplets will fill up an entire bucket. You don't have to keep it running the entire time, right? So small things add up. That's kind of the point, right? So small gestures of gratitude, of generosity is extremely beneficial. Okay, moral of the story, do good deeds, don't do bad. And tame your mind, thank you. It's the motto of Buddhism. Do good, do not do bad, and tame the mind. And how do you tame the mind? Meditation. Even meditation is a good deed. Because what is meditation doing?
Analyzing the mind.
Which does what?
How to tame it. Figure out how to tame it.
Meditate, yes, to analyze the mind, figure out what is the defilements, what is causing us to suffer. And by doing that, it helps us purify the mind. Because if you don't know you're doing bad things, thinking, saying, and doing bad things, then how are you going to fix it, right? So the point of meditation is to dissect the mind and how it thinks and how it reacts to situations. And that acknowledgement, that understanding, that realization of how the mind works is what's going to purify the mind. So now you're practicing the morality part of the Eightfold Path. Of course, that includes keeping precepts, right? For those of you that have taken the 5 precepts, it's to uphold those precepts, abstain from breaking the precepts of not killing, not stealing, not taking, abstaining from taking life, from stealing, from lying, from sexual misconduct, and taking intoxicants, right? These are the precepts that we abstain from. So by doing that, naturally, it will abstain you from doing bad things. And then that naturality then starts to allow you to think more wholesomely. Because if you're not thinking in a state of intoxication, for instance, or in a state of anger, it's much easier to see reality for what it is, right? Which is kind of the point to our practice, to see reality as it is. So if you don't have those obstacles that are holding you back from seeing reality, then it's much easier to see truth, to see reality, because you don't have those obstacles in the way. So to tame the mind is to see what obstacles are there, to figure out why they're there, to rid them, and now you have one less thing that's causing suffering in the mind. Yeah, you may have 990 million other things left, but you have one less. And that's an extremely huge accomplishment. So now you're just going to pluck out the other ones. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts. Yes.
So last time we talked about bad behavior and unwholesome deeds and how people can get addicted to them or attached to them. But it also seems that someone can get attached to doing good deeds as well. Could that attachment ever become corrupted?
Any attachment, whether good or bad, is corruption in and of itself. Because what is attachment? Question, what is attachment?
The craving for something.
So if you're craving for something all the time, is that peace of mind? Then how is that good deed good? That's why we suffer. It's kind of craving. Yes, I love pizza. If I crave pizza every single day, then I'm gonna wake up thinking of pizza, and all I want is pizza. I'm gonna go to sleep thinking of pizza, just wanting pizza, right? That's how desire works. It's because we want something, we liked something that was pleasurable, and now we want more of it. It causes desire, causes attachment, causes clinging to those things. So you go after it more and more and more, trying to satiate that desire for something that you liked. But if you're wise enough, and all of you are, you'll know that if you have to go back to get something again, that can't be true happiness. Yes, that pizza will satisfy you, only until you're hungry again. Sex will satisfy you only until you need it again. Money will satisfy you only when you want more of it. So if you want more, is it really satisfying in the first place? But even doing good deeds, to Quang point, it's not all. But if you see a lot of activists, right, a lot of them are addicted to activism. They're addicted of trying to get their way into the world. That in itself is harmful. Because when you're in that kind of mindset, now you're blinded to other perspectives. You're blinded to other ideas and thoughts and whatever, right? You're so gung-ho on your own, whatever it is, that you deny any alternative paths, right? I think I answered the question. Answer the question.
You already answered, like volunteering for taking selfie. So you're showing I'm doing this, I'm doing good deeds, and get addicted, and eventually this, like you said, we just see that I'm right, everything else is wrong, I'm doing good deeds. Even those good deeds might be doing really bad things. And other people are seeing, for example, like you're feeding people, and those people, maybe someone going on after sometime you realize, oh, these are selling drugs, like they're homeless, but they're selling drugs, causing problems to society, or doing some bad thing, or just other bad thing. But you used to keep thinking, oh, I'm right, I'm feeding these people, I'm helping. So one, there's no selflessness. You are attached, you're attaching to yourself to yourself. I'm doing the right thing. And then you're opening another avenue, politics or whatever, like, yeah, I want to support this, and doing something. So that's addiction. As long as there is selflessness, and once you've done good deed and you're detached, then that's a good deed.
If you can apply the three characteristics of liberation, of selflessness, impermanence, and suffering, or sometimes as nirvana, depending on the tradition, then you have a very clearer mind of things. Right? As Vinay said, if you can take the self out of the equation of I want this, or I believe in this, acknowledge that whatever that is impermanent and causes suffering, then there's nothing to suffer about. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to go after. Things just are, just is, right? It is what it is. I'm sorry? Yes.
Just materialistically saying.
Exactly.
Because in your identifying one thing to the exclusion of all other things.
Exactly. Any other questions?
So one thing I say, like, when the deeds is not you're doing the deed, you have good intention. But you have a correct you have put some thoughts in between, but it might not come out. And you might be, like the results might be different. So that could happen in some situation. Like, for example, I was wrestling with healing people, and when they turn out, the really bad people that are causing harm, like healing them. So yeah, but your intention is good. You started with your intention. You're always trying to do good purpose. It's cause and effect. Generally it's true. It's going to be good effect. Hopefully they turn out to be good people after seeing your good deeds. Hope. But
that's the way to think about it all the way through, right? We start with that good intention, and that starts our actions toward helping someone. And then along the way, we catch ourselves thinking, oh, what a good person I am. Then both things are true at the same time. I'm doing something compassionate, but I'm also, my ego is involved. So it's kind of, seems like we just.
I'm not talking about the ego. I'm talking about the general self. I'm talking about the outcome. What happened, whatever you did good, you thinking you did. Like say, don't feed the fish, just teach them how to fish, kind of thing. But you're helping, you have good intention, and you're helping out. There's no ego, it's just doing stuff completely like no I involved.
Selfless.
Yeah, so selflessness. But eventually, after 20 years later, you realize that I was wrong. I did very.
Well, that's 20 years from now's problem, right? Problem. The bottom line is whatever you do, the question you ask yourself, is this helpful or harmful to me or to others? That's it. Right? Because you can only do so much. If you did something good, right, and the outcome was good, that's all you need to worry about. Because what then can happen is someone can take that goodness and corrupt it and do something bad with it, right? That's not on you. It's on them. So if 20 years down the road something happened that caused it to turn into negative or unwholesome, that's not on you, right? That's just, there was a plethora of other causes and conditions that even allow that to happen in the first place. But as long as you are aware of, or as long as you question or ask, is this helpful or harmful to myself or to others? That's all you need to worry about. All right, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. We'll transfer the merit and go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni. For any positive karmic action we have accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Start on page 1. Incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilled. As all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awake from forgetfulness and realize our true home. To the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma, insatiably Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empties, and three periods of time. The fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattva, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, earth store great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattva. Surpass profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Pilgrim, briefly in this world I am grateful and joyful to hear the Lotus Sutra. How hard to be born a human again, but I might hope to hear once. Lotus Sutra, the Buddha moon is hidden, the son of Maitreya not yet arisen. In the long night's darkness, in between only the Lotus Sutra. Wonderful the Lotus Sutra, whoever copies it, reads it, lives it, they say will be preacher of the fivefold Dharma with his 6 truths cleansed in the end. Wanders the world without fear like a lion king. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Please go to page 154. Time the Buddha addressed the great assembly, saying in an age long ago, an immeasurable, boundless, inconceivable number of Asamkhya kalpas in the past there was a Buddha named Thunder, Sound, Consolation, King, Flower, Wisdom, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak, Sambodh. His land was named Light, Bright, Adornment, and his kalpa was named Gladly Seen. In the midst of this Buddha's law there was a adornment. This king's consort was named Pure Virtue, and he had 2 sons, one named Pure Storehouse and the other named Pure Eye. These 2 sons possessed great supernatural power, merit, virtue, wisdom, and for a long time they had been practicing the way appropriate to a bodhisattva, carrying out the Dhammapada, Sila Paramita, Santi Paramita, Vidya Paramita, Dhyana Paramita, Prajna Paramita, Param of expedient means loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, as well as the 37 aids to the way. All of these they had thoroughly understood and had. In addition, they had gained the samadhis of the bodhisattva, namely the pure samadhi, sansara and consolation samadhi, pure light samadhi, pure color samadhi, pure illumination samadhi, long adornment samadhi, and great dignity and virtue storehouse samadhi, and had thoroughly mastered all these samadhi. At the time the Buddha, wishing to attract and guide King Wonderful Adornment, and because he thought with compassion of living beings, preached the Lotus Sutra. And Pure Eye went to where their mother was present. pressed their palms and nails of their 10 fingers together and said to her, "We beg our mother to go and visit the place where the Buddha, cloud, thunder, sound, constellation, king, flower, we too will attend him, drawing near to the Buddha and offering alms and homage." Why? Because this Buddha is preaching the Lotus Sutra in the midst of all the multitude of heavenly and human beings, and it is right that we should listen and accept. The mother announced to her sons, "Your father puts his face in non-Buddhist doctrines and is deeply attached to the Brahmanical law. You should go to your father, tell him about this and persuade him to go with you. Pure storehouse and pure eye, press her palms and 10 fingernails together and said to their mother, "We are sons of the Dharma king, and yet we have been born into this family of heretical views." The mother said to her sons, "With concern about your father, you should manifest some supernatural wonder for him, where he sees that his mind will surely be cleansed and purified, and he will permit us to go where the Buddha." The two sons, being concerned about their father, leaped up into the air to the height of 7 taloges and various types of supernatural wonders, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down in midair, making water come out of the upper part of their bodies, making fire come out of the lower part of their bodies, making water come out of the lower part of their, making fire come out at the upper part of their bodies, manifesting huge bodies that fill the sky, and then making themselves small after becoming small, making themselves big again, disappearing in the midst of the sky, and then suddenly appearing on the ground, sinking the ground as though it were water, walking on water as though it were land. They manifested these various types of supernatural wonders in order to cause the mind of the royal father to make him believe and understand. At that saw his sons displaying supernatural powers of this kind, his mind was filled with great delight as he had never known before, and he pressed his palms together, faced his sons, and said, "Who is your teacher? Whose disciples are you?" The two sons replied, "Great King, the Buddha, cloud, thunder, sound, constellation, king, flower, wisdom is being in the Dharma seat under the 7-jeweled Bodhi tree, and amid the multitudes of heavenly and human beings, all the world is broadly expounding the Lotus Sutra. This is our teacher, and we are his disciples." The father said to his sons, "I would like to go now and see your teacher. You can go with me." With his two sons seated to where their mother was, pressed her palms together and said to their mother, "Our royal father has now come to believe and understand. He is fully capable of conceiving a desire for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. We have finished the Buddha's work for the sake of our father. We beg that our mother will permit us to go to the place where the Buddha is, to leave the house to practice the way." At the time, the two sons, wishing to state their meaning, once more spoke in verse form, saying to their mother, "We beg our mother to permit us to leave the household life, and Buddhas are very hard to encounter. We will follow this Buddha and learn from him. Rare as is the whole Dhammapada flower, rarer it is to encounter a Buddha, and escaping from difficulties is also difficult. We beg you to allow us to leave the household." Their mother then said, household life. Why? Because the Buddha is difficult to encounter. At the time, the 84,000 in the women's quarters of King Wonderful Adornment were all capable of accepting and upholding the lotus suit. Bodhisattva pure, I had long ago mastered the Dharma flower. Samadhi and Bodhisattva pure storehouse had already some hundreds, thousands, and thousands, billions of kalpas in the past mastered the Samadhi for the escape from the evil realms of existence. This was because he wished to make it possible for all living beings to escape the evil realms. The king's consort had gained the Samadhi of the Buddha's ascent and was capable of understanding the secret storehouse of the Buddhas. Her two sons, as already described, had employed the power of expedient means to improve, so that he could acquire a mind of faith and understanding and love and delight in the Buddha's law. Thereupon King Wonderful Adornment, accompanied by his ranks of ministers and his queen Pure Virtue and all the ladies in waiting and attendants of the women's quarters, and the king's two sons and their 42,000 attendants, all at the same time went to where the Buddha. Arriving there, they bowed their heads to the ground in obeisance to his feet, circled around the Buddha 3 times, and then withdrew and stood to one side. At the time the Buddha preached all sake of the king, instructing him and bringing him benefit and joy. The king was exceedingly delighted. At the time King Wonderful Adorned thought to himself, the Buddha's body is rare indeed, extraordinary in dignity and adornment, constituting a form of a most subtlety and wonder. Then the Buddha, cloud, thunder, sound, constellation, king, flower, wisdom, spoke to the 4 kinds of believers, saying, do you see this King Wonderful Adornment, who stands before me with his palms pressed together in the midst of my law? This king will become a monk, diligently practicing the way. He will be able to become a Buddha. His name will be Sultry King. His land will be called Great Light, and his kalpa will be called Great Lofty King. This Buddha, Sultry King, will have an immeasurable multitude of bodhisattvas, as well as immeasurable voice hearers. His land will be level and smooth, such will be his benefits. The king immediately turned his kingdom to his younger brother, and he himself, along with his queen, his 2 sons, and all their attendants, in the midst of the Buddha's law, renounced the household life to practice so. After the king had left the household life for the space of 84,000 years, he constantly applied himself with diligence, practicing the lotus suit of the wonderful law. With this period had passed, he gained the Samadhi of the adornment of all pure benefits, rising into the air to the height 7 tala trains. He addressed the Buddha, saying, world honored one, these 2 sons of mine have carried out the Buddha's work, employing transcendental powers to turn my mind away from heresies, enabling me to abide safely in the Buddha's law, and permitting me to see the world honored one. These 2 sons have been good friends to me. They wish to awaken the good roots from my past senses and to enrich and benefit me, and for that reason they were born into my household. At the time the Buddha, cloud, thunder, sound, constellation, king, flower, was said to King Wonderful Adornment, just so it is as you have said. If good men and good women have planted good roots, and as a result in existence after existence have been able to gain good friends, and these good friends can do the Buddha's work, teaching benefit, delighting and enabling them to enter Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Great king, you should understand that a good friend is a great cause and condition, and led in which enables one to see the Buddha and Samyak Sambodhi, great king, do you see these 2 sons? These 2 sons have already offered alms to Buddhas equal in number to the sense of 75,000, 10,000 million ayudas of Ganges have drawn near to them with reverence, and in the presence of those Buddhas have accepted and upheld the Lotus Sutra, thinking with compassion of living beings who embrace heretical views and causing them to abide in correct views. At the King Wonderful Adornment, having praised the Buddha's immeasurable hundreds, thousands, and thousands, millions of benefits in this manner, in the presence of the thus come one, single-mindedly press his palms together and address the Buddha once more, saying, world honored, such a thing as this has never been known before. The law of the thus come one is fully endowed with inconceivably subtle and wonderful benefit. Where his teachings and precepts are observed, there will be tranquility and good feeling. From this day on, I will give way to heretical views or to arrogance, anger, or other evil states of mind. These words he bowed to the Buddha and departed. The Buddha said to the great assembly, what is your opinion? Is this King Wonderful Adornment someone unknown to you? In fact, he is none other than the present Bodhisattva, flower virtue, and his queen pure virtue is Bodhisattva, light shining adornment marks, who is now in the Buddha's presence. Out of pity and compassion for King Wonderful Adornment and his attendants, he was born in their midst, a king's son, present Bodhisattvas, medicine king and medicine superior. These Bodhisattvas, medicine king and medicine superior, have already succeeded in acquiring great benefits such as these, and in the presence of immeasurable hundreds, thousands, and thousands, millions of Buddhas, planted numerous roots of virtues and acquired inconceivably good benefits. If there are persons who are acquainted with many of these 2 Bodhisattvas, the heavenly and human beings of all the world will surely do obeisance to. When the Buddha preached this chapter on the former affairs of King Wonderful Adornment, 84,000 persons removed themselves from dust and defiled, and with respect to the various phenomena attained the pure Dharma. So to page 171. Sattva Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Prajnaparamita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-beingness and shoddy. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shadiput, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, in empty, there is neither form nor feelings, no perceptions or mental formations or consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements so interdependent, no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end, standing, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas grounded in Prajnaparamita find no obstacles for their minds. Having no obstacles, they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Dhammapada Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, one should know that perfect understanding is is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra of prajna paramita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate gate para samgate bodhis. Gate para samgate bodhiswaha. Gate para samgate bodhiswaha. Jinn beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite. I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is supreme. I vow to attain. I vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that I will help sentient beings in all realms of existence and their suffering. Namo, thus come one worthy of offerings of proper and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and conduct, skillful in leaving the world through liberation, complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed night taming hero, teacher of gods and people, Buddha, the world honored one. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Shrutigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Shrutigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Shrutigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Manjoshri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjoshri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjoshri, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattva, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas. Refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way. In this life I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learned to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in refuge of Sangha, shining light thus supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Yujin the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking rest in the Dharma and myself. I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold community, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness, gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along